Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Sunday Night Live with me, Jonny Lipsham, here at jonnylipshamstudios.co.uk, here in an extremely cold, freezing southeast of Scotland in the UK. I hope everybody is doing well and has had a great week. I've had an exceedingly busy week and an exceedingly busy weekend. It's that time of the year where everybody is doing Christmas shows, and I am definitely no exception. Last year I didn't really have much to do, but this year, completely different. This year, I have been inundated. So I've spent the last 2 weekends doing Christmas shows, and this weekend was very busy. I've been playing keyboards this week. I've played some bass last week. But yeah, this week was playing keyboards in the pit orchestra for a Christmas show. So all day Saturday, and then a late evening Friday as well, rehearsal, and then the show went tonight and was very, very successful. It was a great show, and I've just got back from that. Got back maybe about 30 minutes before showtime. So actually maybe about 45 minutes before before showtime tonight to see you guys. So yeah, so I'm a little bit on the tired side, so please forgive my slowness of thought and maybe even my incomplete sentences and maybe even incomplete trains of thought, because that will happen tonight. I can guarantee it, because I'm not kind of really with it, to be honest. So yeah, so I said it's cold. It's very cold here. It's like -7 degrees Celsius, which is, I think, like 19 or 20 degrees Fahrenheit. So pretty cold. We've had some snow over the last couple of days, and then we had a little bit of a thaw this afternoon. So the snow started melting back, and now, of course, it's -7, so it is frozen solid. So every road is very dangerous. That's why I'm back so late, because we were basically crawling along so that we didn't slide everywhere. So there you go. That's my fun weekend brought up to speed for you. I do see that we've got quite a lot of people here already, which is awesome. And so I'm going to go through that. We've also got 2 questions to start us off with, which are both very good questions, and I'm going to get to those in just a wee minute. But if you have a question about Studio One, about recording, mixing, mastering, anything like that, then please do get it in the chat. And if you start it with saying at Jonny Lipsham Studios, then that highlights my name in red, and I know that you've got a question. And that means I don't have to go searching through the chat to find questions. They're easily identified. So please do that in order to ask a question and contribute in the chat, and also just say hello and talk to people in this community. You're going to have to make sure that you have subscribed to the channel. So please do that first, and after about 10 minutes you will be able to get into the chat, because it will open for you after about 10 minutes of being subscribed. So please do that. Please also hit the notification bell and select all notifications so you don't miss a thing that I do on this channel. That includes this show. That includes occasionally doing Songwriting Simplified, which is another show that I do with Jonny Gibe, and also videos that I do on Studio One as well. And I'm going to be doing some videos on Notion Mobile over the course of the next few weeks, so you will start to see them coming up on the channel as well. So if you are into notation or interested in notation, Presonus makes a fantastic software called Notion. We had a Notion for iOS app, which has been in the Apple iOS store for 10 years, won multiple awards, and in fact has been featured by Apple in a commercial that they made to sell their own iPad. So that's pretty cool. We got a desktop excuse me, we got a desktop version as well called Notion 6 for Mac and PC, but now we have Notion Mobile, which is completely cross-platform. So you can install it on PC, you can install it on a Mac, you can install it on your iOS devices. So that's iPad and iPhone. You can also install it on an Android phone. You can install it on a Chromebook and an Amazon Fire as well. So there you go. Lots of options for, and it's a complete rewrite of Notion on the Studio One codebase. So it's got a bunch of new features, and it also has even tighter integration with Studio One than ever before. So there you go. That's Notion. All right, let's go see who's here. Billy Morgan is here, and he says that he is high, which is interesting. And Sean Aaron is here. Christina, my good friend Christina, is here. Keith over in Canada is here. John Hogg is here. Kevin from Kevin's Guitar Stories is here. Who else do we have? We have Just Bob, which is awesome. He says, we'll be late. Wife and I are finishing up our Christmas shopping. But he's going to be here, which is awesome. And I'm sure he'll catch the replay anyway. And then there's his question. And then there's Kevin's question. And then we've got Dave at Box NY, who is here saying cheers and frostulations. I love it. And he also says, swap those bagpipes out for some bellows for the fireplace. You know what? That's a great idea. In fact, I might just use a set of bagpipes as bellows for the fireplace. I can't think of a better use. And then, of course, if the embers die a wee bit, I'll just chuck the bagpipes on the fire. I've probably insulted every bagpipe playing friend I know, and I know quite a few. Kyle is here, Don Oliver is here, Cleon is here as well, and Secret Squirrel is here, and John Lake is here. Who else do we have? Good grief, Paul Morgan is here as well, and I've said Cleon's here already, and Charlie Dillon is here, which is great. I think I got to the bottom. Alright, so let's take a look at these questions because they're pretty good. Just Bob asks a really interesting question about mathematical rock or math rock, as I've heard it being referred to. I have to confess, I did not know very much about this at all. I knew that it kind of existed, I just didn't really know very much about it. So I decided to do a little research in the few minutes I've had before, since Bob asked the question. I've had a wee look to see what it is, and from what I can find out about it, it seems to be a mixture of several really interesting elements. One being mathematics, the other one being rock music, but it kind of has its feet in kind of progressive rock. And the reason why I say that is because it uses things like unusual meters, so time signatures, some unusual key signatures as well that you wouldn't normally associate with, and key changes and things like that. But harmonically, it's not really that incredibly complex. Unlike progressive rock can sometimes get harmonically pretty complex and borrow fairly, quite a bit, fairly deeply from jazz harmony. You hear that in some Rush songs. Not all Rush songs are particularly harmonically complex, but there are a few. But certainly things like time signatures and time signature changes and things like that, and metric modulation and things of that nature take place in a lot of Rush songs, which kind of suggests that they are thinking a little bit mathematical about music. And this is where math rock kind of comes in. It's using minimalist ideas, minimalist concepts from the minimalist school of classical music from like the middle 20th century, which is where you take very set, precise patterns and then you shift and shuffle those around in pitch, you transpose them up and down, you reverse them, so you're playing them backwards, you play them upside down as well as backwards. There's a few different variations you can do, but basically it's taking little cells of music, so like a little 5-note figure or a 7-note figure, so anything that's like an odd grouping, as a particular meter, that a particular figure that then gets repeated over and over and over again. And then you have like several combinations of these. So you might have like a group of 5, and then another instrument playing a group of 7, and then another instrument playing, groups of 9 or something like that, with these little figures. And because all of these figures are being played together at the same time, they all start at a different point. So you get some interesting rhythmic combinations that come up. And this gives rise to things like polyrhythms, where you have layers of rhythms, one on top of the other. And then what this does is this provides just kind of this kaleidoscopic shifting around of different rhythms and therefore different melodic cells. And then they follow the chord changes. So you might have these little melodic phrases that will follow the chord changes for a particular set period of time for a section of music. And then they'll move into another section where they'll introduce a different set of cells, a different set of melodic ideas, and then different groupings, and then different time signatures as well. And then maybe they'll go back to the first section. So you might have like an overall kind of ABA form to a song, and they can be quite long, is something that I didn't know about. But you'll certainly find that there are odd time signatures, like 13/8, or let me see some of the ones that I saw quoted here. So, uncommon time signatures like 3/2, which is like 3 half notes per bar, or 11/8, or 15/8, or 33/8, I think is one that Rush did. I think Neil Peart wrote a song that was in 33/8, which had lots of really interesting ways in which these 33 beats, because 33 beats is gonna take some counting to make sure you count it correctly, but it's like it's made up of different groups within the 33 that make it a little bit easier to count. Kind of similar to like how you might group things. I think I've talked about this before on Jonny Gibe's show for Songwriting Simplified, where you might break something complex like 11/8 into groups of 3 and groups of 2, so triplets and duplets, and then kind of dot these around together to make interesting patterns, and then have one instrument playing one set of duplets and triplets, and then another playing a different set of duplets and triplets, and then see how these kind of like cross over each other and mix in with each other. It can be very, very, very interesting, and also can make counting something complex like 11/8 a little bit easier. And I think I talked about this idea of ways to count triplets and duplets, and I think I use kind of like mnemonics, like for a duplet, something like saying housey, and then for triplets saying triangle, for example. So you've got a 2-syllable sound and then a 3-syllable sound, and then you can kind of make your music based out of these kind of very simple ideas. And this is kind of where the minimalist element comes into it. Basically stripping things away, making things into basic little cells that you can then shift around and have different instruments playing these different cells. So that's what I found out that math rock is. It has its roots in progressive rock and indie a little bit, and there are some derivatives as well, like mathcore, which I don't really know anything about, and then Midwest emo, which again I know even less about. But these are kind of derivative genres of this style. and it's very, very interesting. Kind of grew up in the 1980s, from what I can gather, and heavily influenced by groups like King Crimson and Rush, as I've talked about before, as well as minimalist composers like Steve Reich as well. So, well worth investigating. I'm probably gonna do a Google search and see if I can find some examples that I can listen to, so I can get into this a little bit more, because it seems to be a really interesting style that would appeal to certainly one part of my musical brain. Anyway, which is kind of like playing with rhythm. I love playing with rhythm and making rhythms go outside and across the bar line and things like that. All right, so that's Bob's question. So how does it how is it different from normal musical composition? Well, I suppose normal rock songs are a little bit more free-flowing. They may well be very, they may well have a clear form and structure to them. You know, maybe verse, chorus, middle section, guitar solo, chorus, and, you know, then out of the song. But, you know, there's none of those minimalist elements, or it's very rare to find a song that has those kind of minimalist elements to them in kind of regular. I'm trying to, it's hard, you know, to find the right term to differentiate, because rock math is definitely a legitimate genre of music for sure. And I don't want to say that, you know, it's not regular versus regular, because I don't think that that's the case, you know. And I'm very keenly aware that there are some people that will, you know, they'll make this comparison between serious music, as in classical music, and popular music, and this, you know, you can't be serious when you're writing pop music. Pop music isn't serious, versus serious music like Bach, Beethoven, and Shostakovich, and Tchaikovsky. That's serious music. Yeah, this is not serious. No, I believe all music should be taken seriously and should be a serious endeavor of creation. That's my view. So whether you're writing, you know, math rock, or whether you're writing tunecore, or whether you're writing, you know, jazz, or whether you're writing reggae, or, you know, whatever your particular music is that you enjoy making, take it seriously and invest serious time and effort into making your music the best it can be. So yeah, so there are differences, obviously, and I think the fact that it uses less common time signatures, and there's layered rhythms, and there's music, there's metric modulation. Metric modulation probably deserves a show all of its own, because it is quite complex to explain and to demonstrate, but it's probably worth doing. So that I will add that to my little list of topics that I want to do some videos on, because metric modulation, I think, is something that everybody can use, whatever's their style of music. I mean, I use it in jazz quite a lot, and it you know, even in fairly sort of traditional 1940s bebop, when I'm playing that kind of music, you can still make use of things like metric modulation. You just kind of have to do it within that style. You can't do it without, you know, out with that style, because it just won't fit, and it will just sound odd. So yeah, I hope that I've answered that question. I don't know, because I don't really know enough about the genre, but you made me look, and that's always good. That you made me go and look and learn and find out something that I didn't know about. So thank you, Bob, for making me go look that up and find out something about it. It looks like a really interesting genre that is well worth getting into, because I really do like the music of Steve Reich, and I do like that minimalist form as well. You know, taking little note row, little melodic cell, making little rules for yourself that your music has to obey, as a way of kind of deliberately limiting yourself so that you can be creative within those limitations. I like that idea. Alright, so let's move on to Kevin's question, and then if you've got any other questions, guys, get them in the chat now so that I can get to those after I've done Kevin's question. Kevin's question is more of a Studio One question. He says, can you explain folder tracks, and can you send a folder track to a bus? You certainly can. And I don't use them. I'll admit I don't use them. I probably should, because it would make organizing my songs a lot better. Certainly for when it comes to mixing, it would make, instead of having to scroll loads and loads and loads to, you know, through all of my channels in the mixer, maybe it would make sense to have folders. I don't do it. I probably should. And I know Rich, my good friend down in England, Rich Cresswell, he uses folder tracks a lot for his large orchestral pieces that he does. And he has like some massive orchestral templates that he uses. And I know that in order for it to work for him, he has to use folder tracks. Whereas for me, I just kind of don't. I can get away with it. But anyway, let's go take a look at Studio One, and I can show you how I think about folder tracks, and then you can kind of play to your own content, Kevin, and you can kind of have a play with it yourself and see what you think. All right, so let's go to Studio One, and there's the camera because I forgot to turn it on. All right, so I've got these 8 tracks here. There's nothing on them. I've just literally just created 8 tracks in this song. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pack these into a folder. What does the folder do exactly? Well, it just means that you can organize things easier. Let's say, for example, these are all vocal tracks. Let's say I've got like this 8-piece vocal ensemble, and then I'm going to have a rhythm section, and then I'm going to have a horn section, and then I'm going to have like a string quartet to go with this. And this is going to be this epic large piece. Well, folder tracks are perfect for this because I can just basically chuck everything into a folder. And it means that when I don't want to see them, I can close the folder, and I don't see them in the mixer. I don't see them in the event view either. So from an organizational point of view, when you're working with lots of tracks and lots of channels, this is a good idea. So how do we pack them? Well, you select the first channel, you hold shift, and you select the last one. Then you right click, and then you choose the option pack folder. Now the folder is packed. See what this does? This tidies everything up, and then it says track 8 here, but you can rename that. You can rename that to say, you know, vocals or whatever, vocals folder or whatever you might want to do. And then let's say you do this all the way down for all of your sections of your instrumentation. So you've got your rhythm section, you've got your horns section, you've got your string ensemble, and maybe you've got a you know, some other stuff as well. You've got some percussion or whatever you might have, and you've got all of these in folders. That means when you are not wanting to look at your vocal folder, but you're wanting to work in another folder, you can just unpack it. It's dead easy. From an organizational point of view, this is really helpful, not just for the event view, but for the console, which we will come on to in just a wee minute, because there is an option you're going to have to make sure you select so that you can link the track view with the channel view when it comes to expanding and collapsing folders. So part of Kevin's question here is about buses. You can assign this to a bus. At the moment, there's no assignment whatsoever. So if I just go add bus channel, now we've got a bus in the mixer. And if I open the mixer, you'll see that we have this one channel, and it mirrors this channel up here. Now, in order for that to happen, you have to have this option here. Link expansion and visibility of folder tracks. You need to have this checked, as well as this one here, link visibility of track list and console. Both those options need to be checked, okay? And you can have this one checked if you want, auto expand selected channel if you really want, but you don't need that necessarily. And then those two you might want to have checked as well. But certainly the most important ones for this is these two here. visibility of track list and console, expansion and visibility of folder tracks. You want both of those checked, because I'll show you what happens if you don't have this one checked. Close folder up here, open channels down here. Sometimes you might want this view. There will be certain circumstances where this is going to be helpful, but otherwise, for the most part, you don't want that. You want that like that, so that whenever you open the folder, you open the channels. You close the folder, you close the channels. That's the kind of view you want. And then you will have like 7 or 8 folders for your individual sections. So you can close all your folders when you've done all of your individual mixing on each one of those sections. You can close these, and then you can just balance the overall mix of each of these sections, each of the sections of your instrumentation, just by balancing these bus faders. Now this is yellow. You can make it whatever color you want, but this is essentially how they work, and they are a really great, fantastic organizational tool for making your view in the event view, and also in the mixer, streamlined and easy to navigate, so that you can open a section, work in it, close it, and then open the next one. And it makes it very, very easy. And in fact, it's probably something I should do when I'm working with larger ensembles. Like if I'm working with a big band, this would be good, because then I can have a trumpets folder, trombones folder, saxes folder, rhythm section folder. So that's 4 folders instead of like a whole bunch of tracks and channels. So and then I can just work on each individual section and then close it when I'm done with it. And it just keeps everything nice and sleek and easy to get around. I mean, you know, you don't want 150 channels in your mixer that you have to navigate through to, you know, by scrolling to try and get to, say, channel 67 or whatever. But if you've got folders and everything is organized by section into your folders and they're assigned to buses, off you go. It just makes life a lot easier mixing wise. So there you go. So I hope that that was helpful. Let's see what else we have. Do we have any more questions? Sweet Swirl says, do you by chance know how I can contact Rich Cresswell? I'd like to send him my vocals for his 12 days project, but I'm not a Sphere subscriber, thus have no way to share. Okay, if you are able to reach out to him on Facebook or Facebook Messenger, you can reach out to him there, and then you can send him your email address. You don't have to be a subscriber. If Rich is working with a Sphere workspace, you do not have to be a Persona Sphere member in order to take part. All you need is to give him the email address that you use for your My Personas account. When you give him that email address, he will invite you to join that workspace. You don't need to be a member to join that workspace. You can join that workspace, and you can send the files that you want through that workspace. And who knows, you might decide, hey, actually this Sphere thing is a good deal as a result. But yes, if you can find him on Facebook, then I would recommend that would be the way to contact him. Secret Soul says, I have a Personas login, but it won't let me contact without subscribing. And oh, okay, so Secret Squirrel does not have a Facebook account. Yeah, you might find it a wee bit difficult. I guess Rich is here and could maybe reach out to Secret Squirrel and set things up that way. There you go. All right, so that is being taken care of. That's go. Okay, just Bob says he'll probably see the replay. Might be home in time. Yeah, well, you will get the answer to your question there, Bob, when you see the replay. Let's see. I think that's it. I don't see any other questions. I think that's it. I think that's it. I don't think I see anything else. But Rich confirms. He says, yes, folder buses are the best. Yes, certainly if you've got a big project where you're working with lots and lots and lots of tracks and lots of channels, then folders are definitely the way to go. Definitely is the way to go, because it just makes things organizationally so much easier. Most of the time I'm working on small projects, but when I'm working on a student film, then yeah, I do tend to have lots of tracks and channels. Do I use folders? No. Not because I don't like them. I do. I think they're great. I guess because they've not been around for so long, and I've been a Studio One user for nearly 10 years. I guess I just haven't changed my workflow that much. And maybe I should. Maybe I should just adapt it and go, hey, actually, this is a great solution. Which it really is. It's a fantastic solution. So I should probably just make use of it, personally. So there you go. I think I'm going to change how I work. And that's, that's hard for me. I'm not somebody that finds change easy, particularly. But this is something I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do it. Ronald Figura says, I have a Revelator connected to a PC. I have a new project open. How do I select the mic as an input? Well, the Revelator is your interface, essentially. You can select it as your interface in much the same way that I do in the start page in Studio One. So if I go back over here to the start page, this is my interface here. If you have a Revelator, you can select your Revelator from here, and then that will be your interface. It's not that it becomes a mic input, it's that it becomes your interface. And then you can select it in a new song in much the same way as you can with any other device. You would just go to Options, Studio One, let's see, audio setup, song setup, audio I/O setup, and you should see something similar to this with your Revelator, which will show your inputs and outputs, and you can set those up. And then once you've done that, then you should be good to go. And then when you create a track in a song, like I have done with this song here, if I expand this, you should see your inputs. Your input left, your input right, and any other inputs that you've got. But pretty much the Revelator is a 2-channel input thing, really. It's just a USB mic, essentially. But it works as an interface as well. So yeah, that's what I would suggest you do. Set the mic as interface, then left channel is your mono input. Perfect. Perfect. Rich confirms that. I don't have the Revelator, but I know that he does. So that's good that he's confirming that, and I'm not getting that wrong. So that's cool. All right. Any other questions, folks? Secret Squirrel says, I'm considering two build outs for the next year for vocalist and instrumentalist. Can Studio One routes Q mixes and Q mix sends receives to different performers? Yes, absolutely you can. That's exactly what Q mixes are designed for, is to be able to send a different mix to one musician to another one. And it doesn't matter whether they are live in your room or whether they're located in a different part of your house, for example. So long as you've got, all the wherewithal to, you've got outputs on your interface by which you can actually physically send the audio, then you can do a Q mix. So if you've got like a headphone amp, like one of the PreSonus HP ones, the HP4 I think there is, that gives you 4 headphone outputs, and you can send a Q mix to each one of those. And you just have to configure those in the I/O matrix. That's all you need to do. and then you can literally adjust how much of each channel gets sent to each one of those mixes, and it's as simple as that. I mean, I don't have that kind of setup in this room because this room is small. It's not as small as my studio from my 2 studios before. I can maybe get 2 people in here, and I can give them different headphone mixes. I can, you know, one person can stand on the left of me, one person can stand on the right of me. I can give them completely independent mixes. You know, if my vocalist wants a different mix to my saxophone player, and I've got them both playing live at the same time, I can do Q mixes, and they can come straight out of my 1824 through outputs, and that's it. It's as simple as that, really. So yeah, there's always the section on Q mixes in the user manual as well, so you don't have to kind of fly blind and try and figure it out and spend hours and hours and hours trying to work out how it works. You don't want that. Use the manual if you need to. Don't be afraid to use the user manual. There's no shame in checking something out in the user manual that you're unfamiliar with in Studio One. I do it. I've been using Studio One for nearly 10 years. And every now and then I still go, hey, here's something I have not discovered in Studio One before. Let's see if it's documented in the user manual, and then I'll go find out about it, and it'll tell me exactly how that particular feature or functionality is supposed to work. And then I can get back to making music as quickly as possible. The user manual was written that way. It gives you very clear instructions, very clear guidance on how a particular feature works, so that you can then go and do it straight away in Studio One. No fuss, no muss. So yeah, never be afraid to check the user manual. If you've got a usage question like, hey, how do I set up Q mixes? I've never set Q mixes up before, never had to do it. How do I do it? Cool, that's what the user manual is for. There's a whole section there dedicated to how you set it up. So go for it. Ronald says, Revelator cannot be initialized. Well, it might be that you have a sample rate mismatch. That's probably one of the most common reasons why an interface cannot be initialized. It's mostly because the device's sample rate is different to the sample rate of your computer, or different to the sample rate that you have in Studio One. So you got to make sure that your computer, the interface, and Studio One have the same sample rate. Make sure they have the same sample rate. I have Windows set to 44.1. I have Studio One set to 44.1, and I have my interface set to 44.1, and everything works perfectly as it should. So, and I never ever in 10 years of using Presonus gear, because I used interfaces before I got into Studio One. Actually, I used Presonus interfaces. I had the AudioBox USB for absolutely ages. I got that in, when did I get that? I got that in 2006, I think it was. And I didn't start using Studio One until 2013. So that period between 2006 and 2013, didn't matter which DAW I used it in, which is mostly Cubase, by the way. It never failed to initialize because you just have to make sure that the sample rates are the same. So that might be why it's not initializing. It could also be that your USB port is not set up correctly, or is not being detected at all. That can be another reason. So there's a few of those to go and take a look at there, Ronald. Okay? But yeah, good question. And as I said, Rich has a Revelator, so he will help you out. Because I don't actually have one to be able to test with. I did have one when we were doing beta for it, but I had to send it back because they were short on devices. It's the first time Presonus has ever asked me to send gear back. But, you know, once we released them, they were selling like hotcakes, and so they needed to actually sell the beta devices, so I had to send mine back. But hey, it is what it is. I can't complain. Every other piece of gear that Presonus has ever sent me, I've been able to keep. I have 2 Studio Live mixers. I have a pair of Eris E5 speakers. I have the Studio 1824, which was a beta device, and I have the Monitor Station version 2, which you know, and I've got loads of pairs of PreSonus headphones because they keep sending me them. Solved. There you go. Found the revelator. Just lost my PC YouTube audio. Yeah, but that's probably why. It's probably Windows audio settings. Yep, there you go. Kyle says you have to set Windows audio to revelator as well. Yes, you do. You need to set your computer in Windows Sound Control and Studio One to the same device if you're going to use the same device for all of your audio, which is what I do. I have the Studio 1824 as my device for the whole computer because I don't have a built-in sound card in my computer. There isn't one. So if I was to unplug the 1824, there would be silence. I would have no audio at all. So the 1824 is my sound card for everything. System audio, Studio One, YouTube, everything. And because I have the same sample rate across the board for everything, this means that I can play Studio One, YouTube, Notion, and Ableton Live sound and system sounds all at the same time. It is a cacophony, and you really wouldn't want to do it under normal circumstances, but the fact that I can have all of those different audio sources running at the same time and hearing audio through the sound card coming out the speakers, that's pretty cool. That is pretty cool. And it also means that because of that, that way that I have my audio set up in my computer, it means that I can make videos really, really easily using OBS. Tim Talks Audio is in the house. Good to see you, my good friend. Very glad to see you. Kevin says, in a 251 progression in C, what chords would work best for a chorus? Well, 251 in C is basically D minor 7, G7, C. Those are your chords. But if you're using that as, if you're using that as your verse, you can extend that. Let's say for your chorus, you can, let's say for your verse, you're doing. Well, what you can do now is you can go chord 3, 6, 2, 5. Go around that again. 3, 6, 2, 5. Then you can go back into your verse changes again. So just all you're doing is just extending the same idea. Except you're going 3, 6, 2, 5, 1 instead. So you're just backing it up round the cycle again. So chord 3, you can either make that minor or major, it doesn't really matter. Or dominant, which is what I did here. I think the first time I was minor. And technically A minor should be in the key of C. Technically that should be minor rather than dominant. Wait. Or you can make them all dominant chords. Whatever you want to do. But that's an easy way. Without actually having to do any work at all. That's an easy way. I should have been back over on this screen. That's okay. But yeah, that's an easy peasy way to come up with a verse or come up with a chorus just without really having to do any work. You're just using a 2-5-1 for your verse. Just extend that for your chorus. Extend that into a 3-6, and you can do whatever you want after that. You can change key. You can use the 2-5-1 to change keys. So you've got your 2-5-1 in C. Well, you could go to, I don't know, you could go to the key of F or something for a middle section. Just really simply be going, and you could do like a 1-3-6-2-5 here. To get back to C. And you're doing all of that with basically no work whatsoever. And that's how oftentimes pop songs are written in 5 minutes flat. They just use a standard set of chord changes like that, where you're not really having to figure anything out. It's just standard 2-5-1, 3-6-2-5-1, 1-6-2-5-1. Those are all standard pop song formulas. Every pop song uses those. Every pop song uses them. I don't care who the songwriter is. It could be Christina Aguilera. It could be Norah Jones. It could be anybody in between. It could be Billy Joel. It could be Phil Collins. It could be, dare I say it, Krista flicking Berg. Doesn't matter. They all use the same formulas. It could be Sade. You'll fall asleep listening to that, but that's okay. Maybe that is music for sleeping. I don't know. Maybe Sade should team up with Kenny G and they can make a sleep deprivation record or something. Make the whole song minor. Turn it into a dirge. Yeah, absolutely. You could do all of that. 911. Yeah, unfortunately in music there is no 9, so good luck with that. And of course, as Billy says, there's always preset 7. Alright, we've got a few minutes left. Hey, Bob is here. Bob, I have answered. I'll start that sentence again. Take 2 and action. Bob, I have answered your question. You'll find it if you roll back a wee bit through the show. You'll find the answer to your question. Good question. You made me look. You made me go and learn, which was great. Thank you. Anyone else feel like their brain has just been complete mush today? Well, I've been in an orchestra pit for the whole weekend. Playing 30 songs over and over again until we get it right, until the actors don't make mistakes. Because, I mean, really? The band, the orchestra, were that good. We had all the charts nailed on the first morning, on Saturday, on Friday night rather. On Friday night we had the whole we knew our charts. We had them absolutely nailed on Friday night. And then of course we had to do a whole day on Saturday, and then we had to do an afternoon on Sunday, and then the show tonight, as I said. But we had our charts nailed. So we had to just keep going for first the actors to make sure that they knew what they were doing, and such is the life when it's musical theatre, and that's kind of the way it is, unfortunately. And then of course there's doing the tech rehearsal where you have to run the show, and we get so far in the show and then we have to stop because one of the lighting guys needs to redesign the lighting. Because one of the actors has now been moved from stage left to stage right. They now need to relight that section of the stage. That takes 20 minutes. So we're sat in the pit for 20 minutes, chatting amongst ourselves. But of course, we in the orchestra, we nailed our parts pretty much in the first 10 minutes. So it is what it is. And I guess that's why my brain has felt like mush. Tim says, time to eat. Sorry I couldn't stay for long, but I'll make a point to jump in more frequently. Tim, I very much appreciate you coming, and I appreciate your input into, this show, and I very much appreciate your input personally into what I do. Your friendship means a lot to me. Thank you. Appreciate you. W5 Family says I rock, which is awesome because I'm a jazz guy. Dave says I do miss theatre gigs. Yes, it's funny. I've played a fair few theatre gigs because, you know, when you're a jobbing session musician, it's kind of you end up either in a studio or you end up in an orchestra pit for a theatre show. And both have their, you know, their pros and their cons. And actually they have very similar pros and they have very similar cons. Being a session musician, going around recording studios, they have similar pros to working an orchestra pit in a theatre. Actually, if you're a bass player like I was, like I was last weekend, I was in an ISO booth for the whole weekend. I was on my own in an ISO booth with an upright bass for the whole weekend. And so it's quite a lonely experience. But actually, that's just what it is like being in the studio. Except I was in the pit for that. So there you go. I don't see any more questions, so we're going to finish just a few minutes early tonight. So I do believe I saw something about an after show. I think Billy was talking about one. So Billy, if you want to put in your Zoom link, that would be great. Yeah, hopefully I'll be awake enough to talk, I hope. And I want to get some food anyway, so yeah, do that. Do that if you would, whomever it was. I think it was Billy that said, because I don't think Mike is here. I'm trying to find where Billy said he was going to do it. In the chat, I'm scrolling up the chat to try and find it, and I can't find it. There you go. I'll start an after show Zoom in a few. I'll post a link, but it's Sunday, so I need a host because it's Family Yellowstone. I'll post a link near the end of the show. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, go ahead, do that, and as soon as I'm in, just make me host, and I will host at least for a wee while. And if we can get Rich or Mike or somebody like that over as well, then, you know, you can kind of take hosting off of me after that. All right, so I'm going to call it there. So Bill, get your link in here pretty darn quick. And Carl says, make me co-host. There you go. There's the answer. Make Carl the co-host. Cool. John Hawk says, thanks, great resources. Nay bother. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming. I appreciate you all very, very much, and thank you for the great questions. I will be back on Wednesday for Songwriting Simplified with Jonny Gibe. I'm hoping that it will be both of us together because I know that he had his mother's funeral this week, so he might be somewhat delicate, may not be up for it, but we'll see. I'll talk to him and see what we decide to do, and links will be posted to whether it's his channel or mine for Songwriting Simplified. So I look forward to seeing you then and taking your questions then. Jonny and I actually do have things to talk about for the show this week, so we'll talk about those, whether he's there or not. We'll talk about those, and I will see you then, folks. I wish you all a very good evening, and I hope it is not too cold where you are. If it is, wrap up warm and stay safe, and I'll see you soon. Take care. Good night. Good night, everybody.